What would you like to talk about today?
Thought through a lot of things to try and talk about this week. I'm working on putting one to mind. It's been a week of intense activity. I think I'm going to take tomorrow off, maybe, other than one meeting in the middle of the day. If I can.
So, yeah, so I guess of all the students that I have, you know, your predicament with schedule and with activities and with busyness and all of those things seems to be, if I were to give the Carl theme is, I'm really busy.
I hope there's a finish line, though.
I'm going to write you a theme song.
I don't intend for it to be a way of life.
Okay.
Forever.
So how do you get there? I mean, how do you get to that point?
Well, this weekend was one great way to get to that point. Now something else is out of the way.
Okay.
I think getting to that point has a lot to do with figuring out what is okay to put in the way.
Let's say more about that.
If there's something I want to do that's worthwhile, I'm going to do it.
Okay.
Whether it's particularly healthy for me to do it along with other things or not.
So is that a way of saying you are your worst own enemy?
I don't know what it's a way of saying.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what it's a way of saying. It's just I know that I'm going to have a lot on my plate usually. And I need to do a good job of even if something is worthwhile to me, sometimes I can say I can't do it. It's probably the best way to put that, to get to that finish line.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you go across the finish line in one race, are you starting another one?
Sometimes.
Okay. All right.
Sometimes. It's like I got something off my plate now I can put something else back on my plate. I don't really have many seasons of rest.
Maybe you don't want it. I mean, maybe you don't. I don't know. Maybe this is the way you want to live.
I don't know. It certainly doesn't leave a lot of time for processing. So maybe less time for improving on what I've done than there could be. Or to think about ways to improve on what I've done. However, like I said earlier today, I can really only remember one other time in my life I've been as busy as I am right now. So I do hope that when I'm done with it, at least for the meantime, it can be slower. But it'll be at least until the end of CPE before it gets any slower. And we'll see if it gets slower then. Because I'm really not sure what the next year brings to what I have to do.
Okay.
as far as possible moves go, and then possible literal moves, because we're talking about selling the parsonage.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so some things are out of my control, but figuring out what's in my control and what I can work on and can't work on would be helpful.
How often does your Sabbath get interrupted by?
Not very
Stuff.
often. This week it did. Not very often, though.
Okay.
I protect that pretty heavily. Which may seem why I work so many hours in a day, because I'm trying to protect that Sabbath day. So some weeks before Wednesday's over, I'll have 40 hours in for the week already. Like this weekend's really not going to be that much slower than last weekend. I'm going to a wedding on Saturday. I really hope it doesn't take more than 2 hours.
It's not a Jewish wedding then.
No, a mother-in-law called me freaking out because I guess one of their friends can't come to the wedding now, and he was going to be doing the videography. She's like, "Do you know how to like do video of stuff?" I'm like, "I mean, I've held a video camera, but no, not really. Could you please take video?" I guess. Sort of forgetting everything else that was going on. And so I'll be stuck doing that this weekend. Which I suppose...
Is that a pattern where somebody is freaking out and you come to the rescue?
Yeah, I don't look to come to the rescue, but if somebody asks me and they're in a pinch, I usually say yes. I don't look for ways that I can come to the rescue for people, but I don't typically say no in those situations.
You don't turn around and... Okay.
So hopefully that's only 2 hours, but then on Sunday I have regular church. I have a administrative council meeting after church to talk about charge conference stuff. Then I have youth group from 4 o'clock to 5:30. Then at 6 o'clock we have a trunk or treat at that church, followed by a kids movie night out in the graveyard. And I'll be done that evening, hopefully by about 8 o'clock.
Okay.
So start off the week with a 12-hour day. But I tend to stack stuff on Sundays. Some Sundays I won't have anything in the afternoon, but if I do have stuff in the afternoon, I'm going to be working till 7, 8 o'clock at night.
Okay. So I guess the question still remains, you know, granted there are things that are out of your control, but you know, it always worries me when I hear people, and I don't. This is my own anxiety, I suppose. Talking, but particularly pastors who wind up working 60, 65 plus hours a week. I don't see, again, my anxiety, my interpretation, I don't see that is necessarily a healthy thing for anybody in the long run. I mean, I understand that there are weeks where, yeah, I mean, I have to do it too, but I don't think, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm just completely tense. I don't think that's my ongoing pattern. And
yeah,
you know, yeah. So, you know, I guess my overall question is this something that you feel is external to you, and that forces out of your control are requiring you work 65, 70 hours a week? Or is this just something that you feel is an important thing for Carl to do? This is how you get whatever.
Yes and no. There are some things that are outside of my control. Doing CPE, while it's a good experience and a worthwhile experience, I think that is something I have to do, whether I would want to or not. But then I also take on another academic program on top of CPE. That'll take 2 years. And so I still added stuff on top of that. And I might have waited to do that for a year or so, but this was the only cohort taking part in that program that I knew was going to take place in Virginia. So I wouldn't have to travel to Dallas or Asheville multiple times a year, just once a year, because it's a Virginia cohort. And everybody else who's doing it with me is based in Virginia, so it's a lot easier to be local. And I just saw so many advantages in that. I said I have to do it now. But yes, it's definitely not all out of my control. Most
Okay.
of it's within my own control.
Okay.
I'd be willing to say 75-80% of it is in my control.
Is in your control. Okay.
Yeah.
Choices that you've made.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what? Again, I think the answers that so far that you've given have been all very logical, and I have no doubt that they're accurate, but they feel a little thin, and so I keep coming back to the question of what do you get out of it?
Mm-hmm.
What do you get out of? And I'm not talking about I get to go from provisional to
Yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah. What about being busy seems to feed you, I guess.
I guess I think it could be one of two different things. I mean, one simple answer could be it feels good to be busy.
Mhm.
But I don't know if that's the exact answer. I feel like being busy right now, especially with all the other stuff I'm doing, makes me feel like I'm not taking away from my other responsibilities. To do CPE takes a certain amount of time out of my schedule. To do my other program takes a certain amount of time out of my schedule. And instead of, for the most part, I have let go of some responsibilities at the church. Instead of letting go of some of the responsibilities, I tend to just add more hours worth of work and do the same amount of work that I was doing beforehand, which just really adds to what I have going on. And I think that could have more to do with my feeling of needing to be in control of what's going on. So it's not so much about being busy, it's about being busy allows me to maintain control of everything I'm doing.
Okay. Okay. All right. What is feeling out of control? What does that feel like, being out of control of things? What does that feel like to you?
There's no worse feeling for me than being unprepared for something.
Okay.
That makes me anxious.
You're not good at winging it, huh?
No, I'm really good at winging it. Because normally I prepare to wing it anyway. Like, there's always a scenario in my mind. But the idea of feeling completely unprepared for something, or completely winging something when I'm not prepared to wing something, I guess. It just, I'm fine if I really take it by the horns, but the feeling of anxiety is when I'm not ready for something and something just throws me off a balance. And I feel like that can happen when my finger's not stirring the pot
Okay.
sometimes. Or, yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm hearing.
I would prefer to be responsible for a failure as to not be there and have something fail. And then I say, how in the world did that happen? And somebody says, well, where were you?
Okay. So yeah, I'm hearing that that being in control, even if it's a failure of whatever, you know that it has your imprint on it, and you know how much time and effort and work
Mm-hmm.
went into it.
Mm-hmm.
And that not having control over those kinds of things produces an anxiety, because, well, I think part of what I heard is that you're not sure what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm not sure what to expect a lot of times if I'm not in charge or running it.
It's a test, right? Is that what you said? Testing. Okay. All right. I just want to say, they have, 200 some people in the chapel.
I don't hear a herd yet.
I don't hear a word yet either. Okay. All right. So yeah, not knowing what to expect if your hand's not at the tiller or the driving wheel or whatever.
Maybe even more than that, though, just the possibility of failure because of my lack of presence causes anxiety a little bit. That's a little bit more on what is unexpected.
Okay.
Things could go great, but I don't know if I'm always willing to find that out.
Okay. Where do you think that comes from? Do you have any thoughts of where that kind of thinking has its genesis for you?
No.
Just as a suggestion, it might be as you do your family of origin project, it might be something to ask along the way.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about your father putting in lots of hours at
Mm-hmm.
work,
Mm-hmm.
although he was present at other times, but kind of being on the road or that kind of thing
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the time. And so, maybe spitballing, maybe it's a family pattern
Oh yeah, it's definitely a family pattern.
of males. So it'd be interesting to look at that
Mhm.
as part of your family of origin project.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, um, issues about control are usually a reaction to, well, I don't know about usual, but at least in my experience, loss is about feeling a certain amount of powerlessness or ineffectiveness against, you know, whatever else is out there on a by Gumby, I'm not going to feel that ever again kind of attitude.
Mhm.
So it'd be interesting if you uncover something that makes sense in that
Mhm.
that framework. But even if you don't, you know, I think I would be somewhat suspicious that there's an event, a genesis, or something where, you know, there's been a feeling of powerlessness,
Mhm.
and that needing to be in control is a reaction
Mhm.
to that. And I don't know if that's resonating with anything you've ever thought about or not.
I don't know if having control over everything was as important before my son was born.
Hmm.
Because I don't remember this really being a pattern
Okay.
prior to the last year and a half. So I don't know if that has anything to say about it or what that would have to say about it at all.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Maybe it's a sense of, you know, realizing something that was tough for me to realize. I don't have control over what my son experiences, does with his life.
Mhm.
You know, it's for him to find out, and as much guidance as I could give while he was little was tough.
Mhm.
Particularly if he didn't like it. and you know, he had his rebellions.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I never feel like I'm really trying to control him really tightly or anything. People at church will say, well, is he going to be a pastor when he grows up? And I say, he's going to be whatever he wants to be. I don't have any grand visions for him or anything like that. But yeah, it's a pattern I've noticed since maybe in the last year to year and a half.
well,
It's a year and a half this
find that
week.
interesting.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I mean, becoming a parent is giving up a certain amount of control in some areas of life. I mean, it's great. I love being a parent. But, yeah, it's scary, too, because it's awfully hard to control the life of or the future of someone else. And so if I can't, you know, if I have that anxiety over here, maybe I can distance myself from it a little bit by having greater control over here. Yeah, you know, the easiest way to find out if Bill Bolden is feeling that he's lost control over something is if you see him cleaning the house. Because that's something I can do. You know, I can put things in their place and straighten up and make things tidy. And that helps me get my head around some things that I feel out of control about elsewhere in my life. So, I mean, I would just throw that up as a pattern that I have, and don't know if that's true for you or not. But
That's not why I clean the house. I clean the house because company's coming.
yeah, we just don't.
That's
allow
why I
people
try to
over.
have people come over often.
Yeah. So yeah, we just don't have people over. But by golly, if I'm out of control and the house is clean, it'd be perfect time for somebody to come. But at least my experience is that as much as I think it's overused, we do compartmentalize some things in our life.
Mhm.
Our work life from home life, our being a pastor from being a parent, and there seems to be always something, the tension between those aspects of ourselves.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't and is in my case. So how do we, do we overcompensate in one area because of something that's going on in the other? Or is there a way that we can work towards a wholeness that allows us to be both and, rather than, if I'm going to be a good parent, it means my pastoral role is going to suffer. If I'm going to be a good pastor, it means my parent role is going to suffer. Rather than robbing Peter to pay Paul, is there a way to make sure that Peter and Paul have enough?
We'll see.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
I mean, one thing about my Sabbath day is I'm the only one at home with Wesley that day, so that's sort of a day where it's just us
Yeah.
being together,
Yeah.
which is good.
Yeah.
I don't know how much. I don't know how much our relationship suffers. His and I probably ends up being me and Katie's relationship more than me and his.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I don't have set apart time to be with her as often as we would like, which I suppose is normal for new parents who are both going through different phases of their work life that cause them to have to work more.
Mm-hmm.
She's going through residency. I'm going through a lot of different things at work too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
And I mean, we've always had to work completely different schedules too. We dated long distance for a long time. We were married long distance while we were in seminary, basically, because I would go to DC and she'd go to Harrisonburg, and she might go to Harrisonburg the second half of the week, and I'd be in DC the first half of the week, so we'd have the weekend. So it's not really that different for us, I guess.
well, you have a history of resilience there that you're able to make it work. You've got a pattern
Mm-hmm.
to make it work. But the question I guess is still on the table: is there more to? Is there more goal on the family side
Mm-hmm.
that can be achieved?
I think so. It's one of those things in this season, it's hard to find it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we need to work on figuring out how to make that better in the next season. Or the next race, whatever we're going to call it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so how do you develop, yeah, so I guess your, part of your work would be, what is my strategy, or what strategy can I develop going forward to see that I'm not paying the price here for my busyness and control here.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think that does take some introspection about, you know, what is it that I feel that I need from my relationships with Katie and Wesley. What do I feel that I need and can give to the relationships of my two churches? What can I expect and give in my working in CPE, my academic program? You know, so yeah, I mean, there's lots of those little fingers that are out there for you, and I guess the idea is, yeah, what strategy do I have that I'm not paying the price all in one area
Mm-hmm.
because of this that's going on, or this that's happening. Yeah, I got really sensitive to this in my second parish. And my second congregation was very different from my first congregation, my first congregation was sort of a sleepy little town, you know, a lot of older people, and you know, it was a maintenance kind of ministry. Mm-hmm. But the second one, I was down in Chesapeake, and I mean, things moved quickly, and people came and went, and the people were, you know, moving in and coming and interested in church, and we had preschool, we had youth group, we had all of these, you know, wonderful programs and wonderful events, and I was just thoroughly enjoying being a very busy pastor, and you know, it was kind of feeding my soul. Anyway, I said, look, you know, I'm helping this congregation grow, and it's tangible. You know, when you got those tangible results, you want more of them.
Yeah.
So, but I had to pick up Alex from preschool one day, and was bringing him home, and then I had already told him we'd all be there for dinner, and then after dinner I had to go to a meeting tonight, which wasn't all that unusual. You know, mm-hmm. That's pretty much a pattern. I hardly ever got to see him go down to bed. But we always passed another church on our way home. And he said, Daddy, that's where my meeting is tonight.